In this video, I'm going to show you how you can upload an image into the directory folder and save the information on the image in Mysql database. We shall be using React.js as the front end and PHP as the back end. So this is the final product of this tutorial. So if I type here the name of basically I'll be working with the perfume images, so I'll be saving the image of a perfume in the directory folder and save the information of the perfume in the Mysql database. So if I type here Nivea, then choose the image from where I've stored them, then upload. So the image will now be retrieved from the directory folder and the information will be retrieved from the database. So if I can access my SQL database I have created here called React PHP, this is the table called perfume status containing the information. There I have the information. So if I add another perfume here, let's call it Vaseline, and I choose another image and I upload. There we have the image, and if I go to the database and I refresh this table, there I have the information. So welcome to Edge Concepts. My name is Aluko Godric. So start your XAMPP server. I have done that already. Then you can navigate in your terminal to the htdocs folder in your XAMPP folder and create your React app. So I have created my React app and named it React PHP. So inside this React app, I have also created a upload.php file, and this is the file that I'm going to use to receive the data from the React application and push the image to the folder. Then we're also going to send the information to the database that we are going to create later. So I've also set my app running, and I'm using localhost. I'm using a Firefox browser, sorry. Now, so the next thing we are going to do is to create the inputs for the data. So I'm going to create an input for the name of the perfume and an input for the image. The image input will have the type of file, and need all this. Then we shall be using two important hooks from React. One of them is the useState, then the other one is the useRef hook. So let's go ahead and create the variables that we shall need. So for the name variable, I'll be using the useState. This is going to be an empty string. So that is the initial state. Then for the file, I'll be using the useRef. So we can call the file the selected file. This one is going to be useRef. Then the next thing we're going to do is actually be able to update our variables using our inputs. So for the name, we are going to use on change event So I shall be using the arrow function. So whenever there is a change, we would like to set the name to this event.target.value. Then for the file, we simply need to create a ref to the variable. Selected file. So there we have it. Then we also need some upload button. So you can create a button here and call it upload. Sorry for the typing errors. Then we need a function that is going to push the information from the variables now to the PHP file. So I'm going to create a function here, an arrow function, and call it uploader. Said it's going to be an arrow function and it's going to be a synchronous function. So the first thing we're going to do is to test if we are actually getting the information from the inputs. So we are going to console log the name, and we shall also console log the file. The selected file. I really need to work on my types and skills so that I avoid making these so many errors that you're seeing here. So we trigger the button on click of this, we trigger the function on click of this button. Let's save that. So if we go to our browser, there we have our inputs and the button. We need to access the console. So let's type here name of a perfume. I'm going to type Nivea. Then we are going to choose a file. I'm not saying that because I'm building a perfume app that you should be getting perfume images. Our mission is actually to see how we can upload files into the directory folder and save the information into the database. So you can use any image. So when we do that and push upload, so we have our name here, which is on line 8, on line 9. Then we have an object with the property of current. So when we expand, this current contains an input of type file. So for we to be able to access the files, we need to obtain the input. We need to access this variable and the property. We need to access the current property. Then we also need to access the files because we are going to have files in the file type of an input. So if we save that and push this button again, so you can see we have name and we have file list. And in this file list, we have one element or one item with the key of file, and this file is this file list is an array. And inside the array we have a file object with the different properties, that is the name of an image, last modified the size. So to access the name of the image, we need to access the file item of the array. Now, so our interest is actually to get the files. So what we are going to do here is to console log selected file.current.files. So this is the information that we are going to push to the PHP file, selected file.current.files. Now, if our input for the files is empty, for example, it's going to have an empty file list. So we push upload. Let's inspect the console. You can see we have an empty string on line 8 and we have an empty file list. Now if we choose a file and upload, you can now see we have a file inside the file list. So the next thing we are going to do is to do some validation on our inputs, so that we don't push empty information to our PHP file. So we are going to do the if statement here. First we shall validate the name. So if the name is empty, which is the empty string, we want to tell the user to put something there. So we need to store that information somewhere so that the user is actually able to see it in the browser. So we are going to create a paragraph there, and inside this paragraph we are going to access the response. Now we need to create this response variable. Initially it's going to be empty, so we are using the use state hook. So let's call it response. So the initial state of response is empty string. Let's save that. So if the name is empty, we want to tell the user, so we are going to set the response to what we want to tell the user. You can say that the name input cannot be empty. Let's save it. So if we go to the browser, click, you see the name cannot be empty. Then let's do the validation on the file. So if the file is empty, remember the files array, this files array is going to be empty, so its length is going to be 0. So what we are doing here is that if the selected file dot current dot files, so if the length of these files is empty, so dot length is equals to 0, we will want to tell the user to select an image. So set the response to what we want to tell the user. Please choose an image. Save that so that everything is empty. So we have choose an image. So if we choose an image and leave the name empty, this name input cannot be empty. So we have done the validation. So the next thing we are going to do is to push the information to the PHP file. Yeah. So after we have done the validation, what else? So else we now want to choose to push the information to the PHP file. So for this we are going to use Ajax. So first we are going to create a new form object, install that in a variable. So we are going to use a variable here to store the new form object. We can call it a form data. So form data is the same as new form data. And the next thing we are going to do is to append our variables, to append our name and our image to the form data object. So we are going to do form data dot append method, which is going to take two parameters. The first one is the variable that we are going to create and what we are going to append to that variable. So the first one is going to be our file. You can call it a picture. And what we want to append to this picture is going to be selected file. Dot current, then dot files, because our file is only going to have one image or one file, and this file is an array, so we are going to access the index of 0. Now the next thing we're going to do is I have made an error here. This is supposed to be one comma. So we have appended our image, so we can go ahead and append our text. That is the name of the perfume that we are going to save in the database. So we shall do the same form data dot append. This append method, the first parameter is going to be the name. Then what we want to append to this name is this name variable here. So we have appended our information to the form object. So the next thing is now going to, what we're going to do is to use the Ajax to push this information to the PHP. So we are going to create a XHR variable. It's going to be, my keyboard has issues, so I'm working on getting a new keyboard so that I avoid making these errors you're seeing here. So XHR is going to be a new, it's going to be new XML HTTP request. Then next we are going to now push the information. To push the information, we need to access this XML HTTP request, or to do the request. So we are doing that .open method, which is going to take 3 parameters. The first one is the method. Our method is going to be post. Then the other parameter is going to be the URL where we're going to push this information. Because our React app is running on localhost 3000, and the XAMPP server will be running on a different port. It means that these are running on different servers, and therefore we need to put a full URL, which is going to be HTTP, then /localhost. And inside the localhost, I had created a React app, React PHP, that is the name of my React app, in the htdocs folder. Then inside this we have upload.php. Then set this to true. That will be our next parameter. So the next thing we are going to do is to send this information. The information we are going to send now is our object, which is containing all this information. So xhr.send form data. But we need a response. So to get a response, we do xhr onload xhr.onload is going to be equal to a function. And what the function returns is going to be the response. So what we are going to do is to set this response that we have here, to set it to what we obtain from the PHP file, the response we obtained from the PHP file, and we push that to the user so that the user is able to see. So that if the process was successful, the user should be able to see success. So we are going to do set the response to the response of this function. So this dot response text. Save that. For now, we have successfully created the inputs to push our data. And the inputs are going to send the information to the variables, and we have been able to get the information from the variables and send that information to the PHP file. So we now need to start working on the PHP file. So open your upload.php. I have posted these headers. The purpose of these headers is to allow the resource sharing, to allow the course, because we are running on different servers, 3000 and localhost for the XAMPP. your browser is going to block you from accessing the localhost because you're coming from localhost 3000. But now, in case of the production purposes, you're going to push all this information in your domain. Therefore, you don't use these headers. It's going to work because all your requests are going to originate from the same domain. Now, I'll do a video in future on how you can do all this process and push your app to the live server. In the near future, I'm going to do that video. So to save on time, I have pasted these headers. Then the next thing we are going to do is to create a connection to the database. So we are going to create a variable here and call it connection. In short, I'm just calling it con. Then we are going to use the MySqli connect method, which takes 4 parameters. The first one is going to be the host, which is going to be localhost. Then the next one is going to be the user. In this case, I'm using root, the default one that XAMPP comes with. Then I'm not going to use any password. Then the name of the database that I'm going to use, I'll create a database called React App. So that is it for the connections. The next thing we are going to do is to obtain the information from the React app. So to do that, we're going to use the if statement to see if the information is there. So we are going to use isSet method. So if we have actually posted, which is a global method. If we have posted the name of the perfume, we would like to access the files, because that is going to be the contents of our image. So the files variable, we are going to store that files variable in we are going to store the files in a variable. You can create a variable and call files. It's going to be then a global variable again. It is going to allow us to access the files. So inside this is going to be an array. Inside this, we need to access the files array. So what is the name of the files? It's this picture here. So you're going to access the picture key. Then we also need to access our name that we have posted. So we create a variable called name. And to avoid the pushing of HTML tags, we are going to use Mysqli real escape method, which accepts 2 parameters. It's going to take the connection to the database and also what we are posting. So for the database is the variable that represents the database here, which is con. Then for what we are posting, so we are using the global posting method, this one here, which is an array, and we are accessing the name key. So everything we are posting will be stored in an array. So we have our image posted to the PHP and we have the name. So the next thing we are going to do is to work on the properties of the image so that later we are able to change the name of the image, and we are going to check the errors. We are also going to allow certain extensions of the files that we are posting here so that we avoid allowing the user to post maybe the text files, videos, and so forth. So let's start working on the properties of the file. So let me create a description here, file properties. So if you do the print R, so that you print this to the server, what we are printing to the server is the files. You'll be able to see the properties of these files. So let's save this and see if it's actually working. So let's type new here. Let's choose an image, then push unknown database React app. This is happening because I don't have this database, but I had actually created a database. The name of the database I created, I think, was React PHP. I have the database called React PHP. Save that. Refresh the browser. Then type name. Then choose a file. Open. So there I have the file printed in my browser. So these files, I have it printed in the browser. So it is an array. These files contain an array with a key of name. This is the name of the image. You can see it's corresponding to that. Then the type is JPEG, which is this one here. Then the temporary location is in my XAMPP temp php cfc.temp. Then the error was 0, and this is the size of the file. So these are the properties that we are going to work on. The other thing I can do is to inspect the console. I don't know if I was able to console log that. Now to achieve that, we can come here and console log the response. This response text. So if I save that, push it. So we are going to work on these properties here. So back to the PHP. Let's clear this. So let's start working on the properties. We are going to store all these properties in variables. So the first variable we are going to do here is to get the file name. So you can do file name. It's going to be our files array. But what we are going to access is the name key. So we're going to access the name. Then the other property that we are going to access is the temporary location of the file. So temp location. So our temp location is going to be files, array, and then tmp location. So it's going to be tmp name. You look at your browser, it's tmp name. The next one is going to be errors, if there are any. So you can say call it upload errors. To access the upload errors into the files, then the key is errors. Is it errors or error? The key is error. Now, so these are the properties that we are going to need about the files. So the next thing we are going to do is to work on the extension, so that we only allow certain extensions. So to be able to get the extension of our image, when you look at the browser, the image name is this one here. It is under this key. So we are going to use a method known as explode, which is going to split the name into two parts and change it to an array. So to get the extension, first we are going to split that. So to create an array with the splitted, the array representing the splitted parts of the name, you can call it splitted name. So this splitted name is going to be explode method. It's going to take two parameters. The first parameter is where we actually want to split it from. We're going to split it at where there is a full stop or a dot. And the next parameter is what we actually want to split. So what we want to split is our name, which is stored in this variable of file name. So we are going to do file name, write file name there. So we have splitted the name. So now to get our extension, if we split this into two, to get the extension is going to be the last one, the end of the array, which is going to be the last item in the array. So we are going to store that in a variable. Let's call it file extension. File extension. I don't know if this is the correct spelling. So our file extension, we are also going to use another method known as the end, so that we get the last element in our array. So the end method is going to take only one parameter, which is this splitted name. The splitted name here. Now we want to convert it to lowercase, so that everything is going to be uniform. If the user is uploading a file with the name of lowercase letters or the name in uppercase letters, everything will be converted to lowercase. So for that, we are going to use a method known as a string to lower, so str to lower. It is the method that we are using. Then we are going to paste that here. So we have our file extension. Now the next thing, we are going to specify the allowed extensions in an array format. So we create an array here and call it allowed files, allowed extensions, not files. Let's call it allowed extensions. Extensions is going to be an array. The first extension we want is we can allow PNG, we can allow JPG, JPEG, JPEG. For now, we are only going to allow these extensions. Then the next thing we are going to do now is to start, uploading the image into our directory folder. So first, we are going to check if the uploaded extension is allowed here. So the method that we are going to use is the inArray method. So if we are going to check if inArray, which is a method that is going to take two parameters. The first one is going to be the extension that we are checking, so file extension. Which is this one here. If this file extension is available in the allowed elements, so it's available in allowed extensions. If it is allowed, then we shall proceed to check other errors. If it's not allowed, so we create an else statement here. If it's not allowed, we can send the information to the user. So we shall use the echo method. I want to echo files with this extension. Extension is not allowed. Or if it is available, then we can proceed to check other errors if they are there. So what we want to check is if there's any upload error. This one here. So if this error is equal to 0, we said upload error. That is the variable representing the error. So if there are no errors, then the error is going to be 0. What we want, if there are no errors, is we proceed to move the file to the destination folder. But before we do that, we will want to push the error to the user, so we shall use the else there. So we are going to echo there was an error in upload. So if there was no error, we want to proceed here by creating a unique name for our files. So how do we create a unique name? We are going to use a method that creates unique variables. Every other time information is pushed to our PHP file, we need to create a unique variable. For that, we are going to create a variable and call it a new file name. So our new file name is going to be unique ID, that is the method. So this one creates a unique variable. Then we want to join this. We want to join this to an extension. So we join using the dot. First we shall join with a dot or a full stop, so that it's going to be dot extension. Then next we also join to now extension. Remember our extension, we stored it here, file extension to lowercase. So we are going to use the file extension. So we have our new file name. Save that. So back to now pushing the information into the folder. We need to get our file destination where we want to push the folder we want to store our image in. So you navigate to your React app. Inside the public folder, create a folder and name it whatever you want. I've created mine and I'm calling it images. So we are going to create a variable to contain our destination or the location where we want to push the file. So we can call it file destination. So our file destination is going to be a string where we really want our file to go to. There mention public, this folder here. And then we want to push it to images. This one here I've created. Images. Then we join this to the new file name. So that will be our part, the upload part. New file name. So that will be our file destination. So what we are going to do next is to push our file from the file temporary location where the file is located right now to the new location, which is the file destination here. So we can do the if. We are going to use the if to do that. If we have pushed the file, then we want to send the information back to the user that we have actually pushed the file. So to do that, we are going to use the move method, the move uploaded file method, which is going to take two parameters. The first one is going to be where we are moving the file from and where we are moving the file to. So it's going to be the file temporary location, it's going to be file temporary location to the file destination. This one here. So if we have done that, then we want to push this information to the user. So we can simply say uploaded. Save that. So you're going to do this. What you can do, you can navigate to your folder, to some htdocs, then react, to react app, react php. Then we have images. Right now we don't have anything in the images, so watch it. Let me minimize that. Then I'm also going to refresh my browser. Then let's type name, then choose a file. Okay. And upload. You can see uploaded, and there we have our image being transferred there. So if we push the same image, you'll notice that the name is going to be different from this one. Yeah, you can see it. Here's a unique name, but same extension. So we have successfully pushed our file to the directory folder. So the next thing we are going to do now is to save the information into the database. So if you do not, you have not created the database, remember I created the database, and I call the database React PHP. So inside this React PHP, I have created a table that is going to store my information. So let me navigate to my localhost server for the XAMPP. So if I navigate to my PHP admin, let's just wait for it to load. It's taking quite some time. So this is my database. So in this database, I'm going to create a table. I'll call it perfumes because I'm going to enter perfumes data here. I only need 3 columns. So the first one is going to be ID. It's going to be an auto increment, and it's going to be an integer. It's going to be auto increment. Then I need the name. It's going to be a variable character. I'll set it to 255. And also set this one to 255. Then I also need a picture. This one is also going to be a variable character. So next is to save this. So let's save it. Please enter a valid length. Then it's supposed to be 255. So I have a table known as perfumes. So let's go back to the PHP and continue working. So we are successfully able to push the file. So if you're not able to push the file, we can also notify the user. So we can echo not upload the image. So we can start working on saving the information into the database here now. So to be able to push the information into the database, we are going to do the insertion here. So the SQL statement that we are going to create here, we are going to store in a variable. You can call it connection, since we used connect on the top. So our connection is going to be a string, and inside here we want to insert into our table, which is the perfumes. We want to start insert into perfumes. What do we want to insert into perfumes? We want to insert what we want to insert is the name. We want to insert the name and the image. So name, the name of the image, the new name of the image that we created is this file name here, new file name. So picture, want to insert into the name and the picture, because if we navigate to our XAMPP folder, expand this, this is where we are going to insert the information to picture, then name. This is going to be auto increment. So that is where we are going to insert the data. So we need the variables that we are going to insert there. So values, so here we now insert the variables. They are going to be in a string. They are only going to be 2. So the first variable we are going to insert is the name. Then the other one is going to be the new file name. And because we are using a single quotes here, we can use double quotes. Yeah. So it was trying this there. The error is gone. Then the next thing we're going to do is actually push this to the database by using the MySQL query method. We are going to query this. So link our connection with the database connection so that we push the information into the database. So here we are going to use the MySQL connection method. So if we are able to successfully push this information into the database, so we are using the if method. So if MySQLi query the first variable is the connection, and the other one is database connection, and the other one is the SQL query. If we successfully do that, then let's tell the user that there was a success. I think I'm tired because this video is taking quite some time now. So I can say, you can just echo success. But if there was an error, then we can still tell the user that we could not. So you can say echo we could not, just say could not. Could not insert data into the database. I think by this we should be able to successfully upload the image and insert the information into the database. So right now our table is empty, does not contain anything. Let's clear the images. Let's delete these images and see if our app is actually working. So name, then we have an image, so we can start afresh. The name can be Nivea, and we choose a file, then we upload, we get the success. Our image has been pushed to the directory folder. And let's check the database. So if refresh this, so there we have the name and the picture. I expected Nivea here. So what did we push? There is an error. This is supposed to be name, not file name. We pushed the file name instead of the name, the perfume. So let's save that. Back to the browser. So upload success. If we check our folder, we have 2 images. If we refresh, so there we have Nivea. And we have the name of the image, E46. Let's check the folder if it's E46. There we have it. So we have successfully pushed our image into the database. So the next thing we're going to do is using this information. You know, retrieving the information from the database. And to retrieve the information from the database, we need to start working on the React section first. We want this to be automatic so that when we upload, it's going to be automatically be retrieved from the database. Every time we upload an image, our app should also be able to retrieve the data from the database. So we are going to create another function here that is going to be responsible for doing that. So to retrieve the data from the database, we shall create another function here that is going to help us do that. So I'm creating a function, arrow function here, call it retriever. Is equals to async function. Then we shall be using the same approach, the Ajax, but this time around we are not going to do any validation and creating all these new form data. We simply need to send a variable. So we shall be doing x variable known as xhr. That is what I'm creating here. Is going to be the new XML HTTP request. Then XHR. Next thing we are going to do is to send our information. First we need to access the URL and the method that we shall be using. I'm still using the post method. So xhr.open post method. Next parameter, which is our URL, HTTP localhost. Then React PHP. Then upload .php. And set that to true. Then to be able to receive the information that we are going to send from the database, there's something we need to add here. Set request header to content type of application form URL encoded. Then after that we are going to do this function and send the data. We're going to do this to save on time. That's why we just copied it. Instead of sending the form data that we don't have, we're simply going to send a variable. I'm using the template literals here. I'm going to send a string that says fetch Then what I want is first to console log this response text. Instead of console logging, let's send it to the browser. Then here, instead of setting the response text and console logging it, we are just going to remove this and check if it is success. Then we trigger the retrieve button. So if this response text is the same as success, this is a string, say string that error. So we would want to call the retriever function. Let's save it. Then let's head to our PHP file. So I've run this. If we post fetch, then we want to echo posted. So let's see if that is going to happen. So let me refresh my browser. Then post, not post, but name of a perfume Rexona. I'm going to choose a file here and post a new file. See, it's able to echo that. If we browse, we have Rexona there. So the next thing we are going to do is to do the actual retrieval of the data instead of echoing this. So what we are going to do here is create a SQL query. You can call it query. It's going to retrieve our data. So what we want is if we post this fetch, then we would want to select everything from everything is a star asterisk from our perfumes table. Then next thing is the result. How do we obtain the result? So you can store this in a variable called the result. It's going to be my SQL query. This method is going to accept parameters. First is going to be our connection to the database. Then the other one is this SQL query. Then next thing we're going to do is fetch our result in associative array. So you can call it perfumes because that is the data we are obtaining from the database. This one is going to fetch everything in an associative array. So my Sqli fetch all. So the fetch all is going to take two parameters. The first one is this result here, and the other one is this statement that is telling us the way we want to fetch our data. And then associative array. Then the other thing is that we are going to convert it to a JSON format. So what we fetch, we are going to convert to JSON by using the JSON encode format. And what we are encoding is papyrus. Let's save that. There we have it. The next thing we are going to do is now to echo the result that we are obtaining from our retriever function. So let's first echo it. I'm confusing PHP with JavaScript. It should be console log. This is the signs of fatigue. This video is taking quite long. Save that. Head to our console. So the first thing we're going to do is to refresh the browser. Then I'm going to type Rexon again, and this time let me just type parsley. Then choose a file, observe the console, so upload. There was an error. Console.log is out of type. I'm making so many typing errors today. This should be log. Let me save this and clear the console, then upload. So you see we are able to retrieve all the data in an array, but it's in a JSON format. So we need to convert this to a JavaScript format normal, that is convert back from the JSON to a normal array. So to do that, we are going to simply do JSON dot pass even here. Let's save that. Clear our console. So we now have a clean array. So we shall now be able to iterate over this array and then display this information in our browser. So very fast we are going to do that, and we shall be doing it below here. So to save on time, actually if you have a basic information, a basic knowledge of React and the PHP, you agree with me that the mission of the tutorial is achieved, and what we are going to do here is simply to display the information in the database. The main mission was to upload the image and retrieve. So let's now display it in the database. So I'm going to create another div and copy all this. paste it there. Then we shall have another div to display the data. Here we need to create a variable that is going to store the array that we're going to retrieve from our database. So we are using the useState. You can simply set this, call it data, and the initial state is going to be an empty array. Then what I'm going to do is to iterate over this array using the map method. Yeah, you can say data dot map. So it takes a function as a parameter, and the function takes a parameter also. We can call it item, which is going to represent a single object from the array. Then it's going to return the information of the item. So let's create a div here. We call it card, because we are going to display the information in the card form. So we shall start by displaying the image. We'll use the template strings here. Then the image is going to be 2 steps up from this file. It's going to be 2 steps up. That is to the public then image. It is going to be that. Then images folder, and the name of the image is going to be item. It's going to be item. But if we look at our console, the property that is contained in the image is a picture. So that picture. Now we shall also display the name of the perfume in a paragraph. The name of the perfume is going to be item, and the perfume set we have here, the property of the object is a name. So that's name. So let's save that. So what we want when we retrieve, we don't want to set our console log the response, but what we want is to change our data. So we are going to set our data to the response that we are getting. Right. Let's choose this because it's empty, so we need to add media again. Choose an image. Plot here. Where we have all the images that I had put in the database. So we need a unique key here to avoid those warnings. Key is going to be item.id, because the IDs are going to be unique. So if we save that and clear the console, so the next thing we are going to do is to do some simple styling. We'll be using the app.css. Let me clear everything that was here before. and we can give these class. You can call it product container. So that and copy it, use it here. So first I'm going to clear the default padding, margin and box sizes padding. I'm going to set it to 0. Then margin, I'm also going to set it to 0. Then box sizing, border box. Then let's work on our container. Our container is going to have a display of grid. Then grid template columns 1 to 4. So repeat of 4. Arrow on FI. Then the next thing is this card. And cover display of block. Then for the image, and the image to have a width of 100% of the card. So that you need to import this CSS here. So we are importing app.css. Save that. Wait for it to load. So there we have our images. Let me clear the console first. Close it. So these are all the images that we were able to upload here. So you can also do some styling on the top part. And give this a class. I can call it upload section. So let's work on the upload section. First display is going to be flex. Then let's work on the upload section button. Change the button here by removing the border. The default border, change it to null or 0. Then outline to none. This should be none, not 0. Then background, I'm going to make it brown. Then color, I'm going to have a white color here. Then padding of 8 pixel top bottom. then 15 pixel. That's right. Let me save that. Check out browser, there we have it. Then I also need to work on the inputs. Margin of 5 pixel. So that, and the input should have 9 items at the center. Then margin bottom of 40 pixel. Just set a margin going to be 40, then 20. There we have it. Then the other thing we're going to do, I think we are done with the styling. What I'm going to do is to delete everything from the table so that we start afresh. So I have deleted everything from my table. So if I go here and I refresh, so you can see I have nothing in my application. So what I'm going to do is to upload Nivea, our first perfume, choose a file, then load. There we have it. So if we choose Rexona and probably choose a new image, hit load, there we have it. So that is it for this video. Is taking quite a lot of time. So in the near future I'm going to show you how you can do all this and push this information into the live server, so that you will be able to enter your images from anywhere and you can actually use this approach in your production. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it and if you're new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share this video to support me to be able to produce more amazing content. Thank you. See you next time.